At the peak of his career, Peter Burns really had it all. He had a great job at Nortel and a six-figure salary and a family. But then he got sick, he lost his job, and last January he lost his disability pension. Peter Burns died last week, and the CBC's Julie Ireton really got to know him well over the years and joins me in studio this morning with the story of his life and the ongoing fight for disability benefits that will continue now after his death. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Tell me about Peter Burns.
Well, I first met Peter Burns a couple of years ago. We spoke several times. My last interview with him was last month, and he'd worked at Nortel for several years and by many accounts was one of the company's bright stars. He had a PhD, was a performance engineer. When I asked him what he did, he dumbed it down for me, saying he calculated the speed of telephone switches and networks. He was drawing a six-figure salary and was very valuable to the company.
This problem came to my ears. I said to myself, I wonder if I can apply my new theory to this new problem. So I applied it, and I said to them, look, I think you can get 25 or 30% more processing power out of this computer if you did this. And when they did it, they got all their stuff back and all their processing power back that they wanted, and they managed to avert a penalty. And I think the penalty was somewhere around $1 billion. So the word was that I kind of saved the company $1 billion. That thing became, I took it a few more steps forward, and it became, a patent. I patented the idea into something, a device.
And of course, Nortel patents are now part of a huge sale. Google wants to buy them for close to $1 billion.
So tell me when Peter Burns got sick.
About 20 years ago, Peter had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he recovered from that. But then in 2004, he had a tumor removed from his spine that the surgery did some damage. He also suffered small strokes. And Peter had chronic health problems and constant pain, and he just couldn't sit for long periods of time, so he had to leave work.
And Julie, he did have benefits at that time.
Full benefits, in fact, because of his earlier brush with cancer, Peter had paid extra to top up those benefits. So he was making about $70,000 a year on long-term disability, enough to live comfortably and to support his 3 daughters.
And so what changed?
Well, Nortel went into bankruptcy protection in 2009, and Peter found out that Nortel had been self-insured. In other words, Nortel controlled its own benefit plan rather than buying insurance from an outside firm, and the trust account set up at Nortel to collect those disability benefits was underfunded. So last January, Peter's benefits were cut considerably. Basically, he was going to be expected to live on his Canada Pension Plan disability payments, which was about $1,200 a month.
Okay, from $70,000 a year to $1,200 a month.
Yeah.
How did he manage?
Well, last month I went to talk to Peter about how the cut was affecting him. He lost his Nortel benefits at the end of December, so he'd been managing for about 5 months, and he was living in a cramped apartment in Canada, and he says he had downsized to something he could afford.
Well, I have my daughter living with me half-time. It's a 2-bedroom apartment. I probably can't afford a 2-bedroom apartment. I can't ask my daughter to live on a couch. So it looks like I probably have to say that she had to live with her mother. I don't know. I didn't want to get there. Who are these people that do this to us? I don't understand. How do they sleep at night?
How did they sleep at night? Angry? Was he bitter?
I think he tried not to be. He was on a lot of medication. I could tell when I was with him that he was always fighting pain. But he was a leader among his group. He had a lot of credibility and clearly articulated the issues and was very practical and felt there should be practical answers to what he saw as an injustice.
It feels like Nortel looks around and says, well, who's the most voiceless group we can find? Oh, there's a disabled group. Now, what can we do that they can't do anything about? And see now, we'll take away all their money. But, of course, a lot of them are in bed and they can't fight, and we'll just take their money away. And if they try to fight, we'll just tell them that they're crazy and keep putting the pressure on them. Eventually, they'll break down because these guys got no money. What a great idea. Go after the people who are the weakest.
You said yourself he was a leader in the campaign to restore benefits to disabled Nortel workers. So what happens, Julie, now to the campaign now that he's passed away?
Other former Nortel workers tell me the fight goes on, but it won't be easy. Burns is not the first of these disabled workers to have died, and many others say they just don't have the strength or the means to be part of a campaign. I spoke to José Marin. She was also on long-term disability from Nortel, and Peter Burns was a good friend.
I know Peter would want us to continue. And I mean, I'm going to continue on because this needs to stop now. We need to have a solution now because this should have never happened to us, and it should never happen to anyone else in the future. And that's the most important part of it. You know, it's so straightforward. You don't let sick people you don't let them die. You don't let their company steal their money and run away with it. And I just don't understand why Peter had to die, you know, and other people had to die as well, because he's not the first one. He's one that is very well known, but he's not the first one who died way before his time. And I mean, I don't want to be the next one.
So these are people who, I mean, are vulnerable because of their disability, because they are ill, yet they continue trying to fight. Do they have anyone else going to bat for them, Julie?
There's a professional actuary as well as a financial analyst who've donated countless hours to help prepare statements and strategies. Toronto lawyer Joel Rochon also took on their case pro bono. Rochon represented the group in bankruptcy court and is now hoping the Supreme Court will hear the case.
Protecting this vulnerable group of society is really important. And we're not just talking about the few hundred people that have been affected as a result of the Nortel bankruptcy protection process. But we're talking about potentially over 1 million people across the country who are exposed to these insecure insurance policies. So we're looking at a large number of people that could be potentially affected. Anyone could become disabled at any time. We think this is an important case for the top court to hear, to try and get some direction as to how these people should be better protected.
And so, Julie, where is the whole bankruptcy process with Nortel at right now?
Most people don't realize it, but the company is still operating. In fact, there are still more than 700 people working there, close to 400 in Ottawa and Mississauga, and Nortel is still doling out retention bonuses. So that makes what's happening to these people with disabilities a little more troubling for them. In fact, an independent financial analyst has calculated some numbers based on reports filed in bankruptcy court. Diane Urquhart says Nortel has paid out more than $400 million in bonuses while in bankruptcy protection. She's also calculated that about $360 million has been paid out for professional fees, mainly to lawyers in the U.S. and Canada, and none of that money is going to the people who are on disability. Okay, so then by comparison, how much do the people who are on disability at Nortel say that they want from the company or need from the company? They say they need $80 million to restore the modest benefits that these 360 workers need, but they're in a long line of creditors, and right now Nortel is still selling off its parts to eventually pay those creditors. Mr. Burns' death is clearly a blow in this fight for a settlement for disabled workers, hey? It is. It definitely is. And the people I've spoken to over the past couple of days say that it's a great personal loss. Peter was a smart guy who was suffering from his own health issues, but was very generous to other people in the group. And when I visited him in April, he pointed out a gift that he'd received, something that helped him with memory loss that he'd suffered after these little strokes. And you'll hear him explain this in the clip. First, he describes the work he was doing on Parliament Hill with various politicians.
I've been with Art Eggleton and Scrow and I. King. And, it's been a very interesting experience. And, you know, if it wasn't a matter of survival, it would almost be fun to do this. That's my alarm clock, my chime clock.
Oh, tell me about the clock. It's beautiful.
I got that for Christmas, and I at first I thought it was a bit extravagant, but you know, I have a short-term memory loss, and the funny thing about that is that you lose track of time, right? It's been actually a wonderful thing for me.
That's Peter Burns. His funeral is on Friday afternoon at House Playfair, McGarry. He was 54.
54.
Yeah.
Julie, thank you.
You're very welcome.
That's CBC reporter Julie Ireton. If you knew Peter Burns or other workers who worked at Nortel and you want to send in your comments on this story, please send us an email. The email address, ottawamorning@cbc.ca.